Okay,
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay.
we can hear you. Yeah,
All right.
Jeff, no problem. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Kevin Scanlon. I'm the chair of the Board of Library Trustees, and this is going to be our first Zoom remote meeting. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Let me see. Do you want to run through the agenda like we normally would, the acceptance of the secretary's report, and go through that, or go right to the public participation of the zoning?
It's up to you. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know how much there is on the staff reports to talk about.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep the other people waiting.
Yeah,
Do
why,
that.
okay,
Why
that's
don't we
do
go-
it.
I would agree with that. Let's, cut
Why don't we go right to the public participation zoning affecting 345 Main Street? And I remember at this last meeting, I have some context of what the issue is, but maybe Brian or Paul or Bob could sort of frame the issue for us or give us some context as to what we're looking at. I think everyone has sort of a general understanding of what it is, but maybe someone can kind of give us a little bit of history behind it and what the ask is of us right now, if anything, and then we can sort of ask questions from there.
That'd be great. I'd be happy to do that if
Okay.
I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
For the record, Brian McGrail. And thank you, first of all, thank you, Catherine, for setting this up, and thank you to the trustees for allowing us to be here during these difficult times for everybody. Bob DeBella is on. Bob is the president of the Savings Bank. I represent the Savings Bank in their endeavor to do some work on their property, which I'll give you some background and detail on. And Paul Revis, the town planner, is on also, who always has good information, good ideas, and good input when it comes to these things. So, Paul, I'm just going to tell you, just so you know, you're back on mute again. Just so he knows, if he tries to talk, he's muted out. He probably can hear me. I think the best way to do this, I'm going to try to share a screen. I don't know if I can do that. Can everybody, let me see. Hang on a second. I think the best way. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
No. Who has control? Does someone have to let me to open it up to share screen?
Share screen. How about that? Let's see.
If you go to share screen, there you go.
Okay, so you guys can see that now?
No.
No, okay. Hang on a second. Let me try something, because it's kind of,
It's coming up.
I think it will be helpful.
So now we can see.
I see Kevin's screen.
Yeah, I just see a big Zoom screen
I
in
see.
a small corner. They are lovely pink and green pastels, though.
Yeah, very spring-like. You're viewing Kathy's screen is what it says.
I think there's something in the, when you set up the meeting about whether or
Yeah,
not
so
to let
Kev,
others.
If you stop, I'm trying to do it, and it says that you can't share it if someone
Okay.
else is using it.
Well, I'll get out.
Okay, you get out, maybe I can try.
Let's see. I don't know how to get back to
There should be a red button on the top of the bottom of your screen.
Yep,
It says
I
stop
got it.
sharing.
Yep, got it. There we go. Sorry. Thank you, Adam.
Right, so let me see if I can. Hang on. All right, can anybody see that? No?
No. So if you open up your participants thing, you should be able to give him privileges to share screen.
While you're doing that, I'm going to open a couple of things that we're going to need.
Did you ever claim host, Kevin?
He
Kevin's
said
on
he
mute.
did earlier. That's maybe why we're having the issue, because Kevin didn't claim host.
Do you have a button to do that, Kevin?
Kevin's muted right now.
Yeah.
Where is he?
No, It
Right.
just told me to go to participants. When I went to participants, there was nothing there to show, to say claim host.
Okay, I see it at the bottom of, I'll claim host and see what I can do.
If you click on participants, on the bottom toolbar, you'll get a list of participants on the right panel. And if you look at the bottom of the right
Oh,
panel,
yeah, I
in
see
the
it.
far
Yep,
right corner, it says claim host.
got it. Claim it right now.
I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at this stuff.
Okay.
Okay, it says you're the host. So now do you have the ability to allow people to share the screen?
Let's see.
That work?
Oh, yes, it
There
worked.
you go, magic.
There it is.
Okay, great. So everybody can see that now.
Yes.
That was easy.
Okay, great. So this should be helpful. This is a plan that Paul Rivas put together, and this, in essence, is our article that we are going to be presenting at town meeting on behalf of the Savings Bank. And I think this will be helpful to you folks to give you a little background as you were requested on what's happening here. So I'm going to orient you with my mouse. So you can see this is Main Street downtown, and you have Chestnut Street and Avon Street. This is the whole library property, okay? So that's the entire library property. You can see this zoning line splits the library property. So half of it is in the business zone towards downtown, but the other half, and probably the majority of it, is in the general residence district heading down towards North Avenue. What prompted our request for the bylaw change is this vacant piece here is where the current Savings Bank branch is located at 357 Main Street, where the main branch is. This is the Oddfellows lot, or the Oddfellows Buildings lot, which, as you know, was destroyed by the fire and restored by the Savings Bank and made part of their campus. And what the Savings Bank recently did is they purchased this piece, this little rectangular piece, and this is the site of the Hudson Insurance Building. And their desire is to incorporate that into their campus. So now they, in essence, will have the entire block. And by incorporating it, what they plan on doing is raising the Hudson building and constructing a modest addition that will architecturally fit with their Savings Bank branch building and the Oddfellows building, and it will connect to both of them and it will blend right in. When we started to get ready to do this project and we were doing our due diligence, we stumbled upon the fact that this zoning line, this business line, which divides your property, cuts right across Avon Street. It also divides this property, which is the Simiola Law Office. And you can see this little portion of the triangle is Simiola, and that's business, and then this piece is general residence. It also cuts into this piece, this property, which is 558 Chestnut a little bit. That's where a group home is situated currently. And then it really affects us because it cuts into our lot, and you can see this triangular piece here is currently zoned general residence. So where the rest of our lot is, the Hudson lot is zoned business. So this creates a problem, a pretty big problem to make any use of this lot feasible for the Savings Bank. So we said, boy, we've got to clean this up and request to change this. When we started doing it, we obviously approached the town officials. We always talk to Paul Rivas, he is our town planner. And we talked to Mr. Mayo, and we talked to Jack Roberto, who's the building inspector, who's the zoning official in the town. And we presented this issue, and it was suggested by them, and we thought it was a good idea. They said, well, when you're cleaning this up, you should look at the whole area. And all these lots that are kind of mixed or divided, split lots, split zoning lots, maybe clean those up at the same time. Because what happened with the zoning line when it was put into effect, it ran parallel to the center line of Main Street. And what they did when it was put in back in the late 1920s, they just measured 150 feet back from Main Street. At the time, a lot of these lots were probably not even in existence at that time, or they were different makeup and different matches, and they've changed over time. So as you can see, as this line comes down, when it gets to the other side of Chestnut Street, it then heads back down to North Ave, and everything on this side is business all the way to North Ave. So we thought, in conjunction with the town officials, that it made sense to take this line and make it run with the property lines rather than just 100 feet from Main Street. And it really cleans things up. So we really need to do it for the savings bank. Basically, we were in discussions with the town. As I mentioned, they said, well, you should probably do it for all these properties and straighten out that line and clean it up. And that's why we did it. And that's why we incorporated the library, and, you know, kind of with our discussions with the town. It's interesting, you know, I do want to say we're here to give you information for you to decide on what you think is best for the library. We're really not here to sell anything to you on, you know, gee, we need you to do this, we need your help, because to be honest, this proposed change that we're doing for the library property has absolutely no impact whatsoever with the savings bank and what they're doing. So if at the end of this conversation, your board decided, gee, we don't want to be part of this, it's not a problem. We get to town meeting, we can just amend the map and take it out. The reason we put it in is if public hearings at the planning board started and this wasn't in there and somebody said, gee, you should have included the library, it's a split lot, you can't put it in after the fact. It's easy to take it out, but you can't add it in during the process. And Paul Rivas knows, him and I have worked on these multiple times, zoning changes. They're very, very complicated. They're very tight scheduled, and you really have to draw with an artist brush, because if you miss one step or don't do it correctly, it can jeopardize the whole zoning change. Because at the end of the day, the Attorney General reviews the whole process to make sure that everything was complied with in public hearings. So the process for this is that when it was initiated by the savings bank, it went to the town council. The town council then refers it to the planning board to review and make a recommendation to town meeting. And in doing that, the planning board has public hearings for folks to comment and give their feelings. And then the planning board makes a recommendation to town meeting on their position. They can recommend to the town meeting should approve the bylaw change or the map change or not. The planning board's vote is not binding. It's only directory to town meeting. So it really, if they vote no, it can still pass a town meeting. It's really for them to just, you know, tell the town how they feel about it and you know, what their recommendation is. As far as the library is concerned, you know, it is awkward that you have a split lot in such a significant split lot. The fact that you do has no bearing on the operation of your library as it currently works, because library use is an allowed use by right in every district in the town. So it's an allowed use in the general residence district where half of your property is situated. So there's no worries that, you know, that this impacts your current operations or your use as a library. But in talking to Paul, and you know, I'm sure Paul will give you some input, you know, we thought it was better to have the lot entirely zoned business because it cleans up the property and the zoning lines and potentially gives your board some flexibility in the future if there's things that you decide you want to do within the library as part of your operation that you would not be able to do in that district now. And, you know, an example would be, and this might not even be on your radar, but let's say somebody said, you know, in 5 years, gee, you know, it would be great to have a coffee cafe, you know, with internet that, you know, we could serve coffee, we could, maybe rent out a little piece to somebody that could operate in here, and it would enhance our use and bring people in. Right now, you would not be able to do that in the general residence district because it wouldn't be allowed, whereas in a business district, it is allowed. If you decided you wanted to do some additions onto your building in the future, the setbacks are stricter in the general residence district, especially on the street setbacks, and the buffer zone requirements are stricter. So it might give you some flexibility on that. Those are kind of the obvious benefits that I can see that you might want to consider on how you feel about it. The interesting thing too is I noticed this just for you to know. It's kind of interesting historically. I did a little research. This map is an old assessor's map, and I went back to the title on the library. I was kind of curious how that zoning line might have evolved and why it was split. And this is an early or late 80s map, and you can see that this is the portion of the library that is shown right here, is 19,000 square feet. And this matches the deed to the town for the library dating back to 1922 that I was able to find at Middlesex Registry of Deeds. At some point, the library acquired this property, the old lot 63 on the assessor's map. Because as you notice, it doesn't have a number. This is 7. And now if you look at the current maps or maps online, this has all been merged into one. And I just I did a little research trying to find out when that might have happened. And I couldn't find anything at the registry on it. I didn't spend a ton of time on it, but it is evident that it seems to me that at some point, the library acquired this. So when you look at the assessor's records now, there is no lot 63 anymore. It's gone. And when you look up 345, is it 345 Main Street, right? That's the library address. Yeah. When you look that up, it describes the assessor's lot as 62 plus, which would account for this. So it just, not that it has a lot of relevance, but it was just kind of interesting to me that at some point that piece had been acquired. And I thought that maybe that had something to do with the zoning line, but I really don't think it does, because, if you go, this is like 54 feet out of a total of 200. And if you go back to the zoning map, it's, that will put the line like there, where, again, I think more of the library property is zoned general residence. So where we are now is we've had two meetings with the planning board for them to, discuss and take public input. And, they're very interested in how you folks feel, because, they're saying, well, we're going to make a recommendation. We really don't want to make a recommendation that would be contradictory to what the library trustees feel, where they're charged with managing the library property. So that's where I reached out to Catherine, and she was kind enough to try to get me on the agenda for March 18th. And then that's when the world changed, probably like 2 days before, and everything was canceled. So that brings us here in this Zoom meeting now. So that's the background. Paul, do you want to add anything to that, Paul? Or
Yes, Brian, do you have the next article too?
yeah, I have all the articles, Paul. Yes.
Why don't you cover that second article?
Okay. So there's another article that really doesn't have a lot to do with the library, but this is part of the bank. So Article 24 would be the map change. And then what we're also requesting, the Savings Bank is proposing another article at town meeting that would be a text change. And the first one is under L. Paul, I see a typo in this, just so you know, where it says amending 190-3, we need to add a 1 in there. See it? Paul?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, like I said, we have to paint with an artist brush. So basically what this allows for is going back, what these two articles allow for is dimensional relief and buffer zone relief. for financial institutions in their offices in the business zoning district. Paul has amended this and has limited, this would be the final of that. This was kind of an amendment pursuant to the planning board meetings that we've already had. And they want to limit it to the business district. And it would allow for dimensional relief for financial institutions in the downtown district, primarily that being banks. As you know, we have a number of banks in addition to the savings bank. And the situation with the banks is becoming very competitive in some of the lifestyle outdoor type mall places that it's becoming very competitive for the banks to be able to morph and do different things with their buildings. You know, you see the savings bank doing an addition. The cooperative bank just changed their entire lobby to make it more open and kind of friendly for people when they come in. So what these two bylaws do is they allow for dimensional relief, some forgiveness via special permit by the Board of Appeals to allow them to get closer to the property lines downtown and not have buffer requirements that would normally be required. And one of the things that came out of the planning board hearing was some of the public that showed up brought up a comment that we thought was a good comment. And they said, well, you know, we see that you're getting opportunity for dimensional relief. One thing that is concerning to us is that you could get that for height. So now you could end up with an excessively high building via special permit for a bank downtown. And you can already do 50 feet of height in the business district. And everybody agreed there'd be no need to go beyond that. Is it 60 feet, Paul? I think it might be 60 feet because I think the Oddfellow building is like 54 feet high.
I think that's correct. I can
Yeah.
check.
Yeah, I think that's correct. So it's 60 feet in the business district. So we agreed and we said, you know what? We know no one's going to need to go higher, so we're not looking to allow that to happen. And that's why Paul added this in, except for height. You can give dimensional relief. So when you go back to let me see. Yeah, when you go back to the map, you know how tight things are for the savings bank. You know, the Oddfellow buildings basically takes up this entire lot, except for a little strip in the back. And the savings bank branch takes up its entire lot. And then this is going to basically take up this entire lot. So if you had to meet the dimensional requirements in the floor area ratios that are required, what floor area ratio is in the business district, if you take your lot, you can only have a building square footage, all floors 1.5 times your lot. So if you had a 10,000 square foot lot, you can only have a 15,000 square foot building. And so that allows the Board of Appeals, the way we've proposed it, to look at it and determine if it fits and it's warranted, and if it is, they can allow relief for that. And that's why we've added that change, which Paul was referring to right here. Does that help, Paul? Did we lose him?
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that to them. And it is 60 feet. I have the table here.
Thank you. Yep. So did I miss anything, Paul? Do you have anything that you wanted to add?
The map change would also allow the law office across the street on Avon Street from the library to also take advantage of paragraph L&M. And I would guess it would also allow the group home to do that as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't really affect the group home because they're exempt under zoning. That doesn't apply to them.
If that building was torn down and it was converted to a business use and it was a professional office use, they would be allowed to use that special permit provision.
True. The other things that you'll notice that I'll just add is what we had to do is rezone the streets because Wakefield, our streets are zoned. So that's why, like in front of where we would change the library, we're rezoning that to business. Because if you abut a residential district, even the street, there's excessive buffer requirements that take up probably about at least 15 feet of your property before you can do anything. So, that's some of the advantages that it might give you, because I know in this area is kind of where the building is set back, but I think it's kind of sunken down. There's like unique topography there, the way the building is designed. But that's why we have also rezoned the streets, because that's how the zoning map shows it.
So I have a question. Why did you not take the zoning all the way into the post office? Why did you stop in the middle of our block?
That's a great question. And we thought about that. And quite frankly, we decided we really didn't want to deal with the federal government because that's a federal, we said we'll deal with town-owned property, but once we get into the post office, we really didn't want to tangle with them because they're exempt from everything anyways. So good
Okay.
question, because we did talk about that, because it really would have made sense to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Just seems unusual
Yeah.
stopping in the middle of a
Yes.
block.
Yep.
I have a quick question. Maybe it's a question for Paul instead of Brian, but just your cafe comment made me think. Could you give us an example of something that wouldn't just be considered an accessory use? So within the library, we can have accessory uses to the library in there, like we can have a store because it's part of the library selling the books. What wouldn't be considered an accessory use? Is the cafe too far down that road?
Paul, you want to deal with that? You want me to address it?
That's a pretty strong hypothetical question. I know that I was working with Sharon at one point on putting a cafe on your front porch in the library. And there could have been a question about having a business, a commercial use, and leasing it out there by the library. That would have been in the business zone in the front. But if you did something like the old Gardner Museum, where they had a tea room that served sandwiches in the back part of the Gardner Museum, if you recall that, some libraries do things. Maybe a commercial tenant. Zoning would be one hurdle. You probably would have other hurdles to deal with as your board would consider using a commercial use there.
I mean, I would see any potential expansion would be on that Avon Street side if you wanted to do something along there. Well, that's where the impact would be, no?
Right here, Chris?
Yeah. That's where we have space.
No, we just have our driveway.
But also anything on the grounds, not that you're gonna play with the grounds yet, forever, but that kind of stuff, if you were looking for, some kind of accessory use there and or any kind of build out, in the general residence district, you have issues that you wouldn't have in a business district.
Well, yeah, I mean, you couldn't do an accessory use within the general residence district. So like, for example, the library use itself and, anything the library use itself is allowed in this district. But if you're doing a cafe, that's really not an accessory use, as Paul said. That's like a different use. I mean, that's a tough argument that that's an accessory use to a library. Parking would be an accessory use to a library. I mean, that's normal. But if you start going outside the scope, especially if you're going to rent it to somebody, like a little area to run it, and they would give you a piece of the action, that's not going to be deemed to be an accessory use of the library. That's going to be an independent business use that's going on.
When we were working on the outdoor cafe for the front of the building, one of the things I lobbied Sharon for was to allow a food truck for someone to park in your parking lot. And that would have been something essential because it would probably be a refrigerated truck. It may have been, something that the building inspector might construe as essential to the business, and you couldn't put it there because it wasn't in the business zone. So that's really reaching, try to figure that out. But I think it's possible that someone would rule that food truck couldn't park there and use that parking lot because it was part of the business operation.
Joe, I just want to add one thing, because something that potentially comes up is, you know, and when we've talked about this, it could come up at town meeting. You know, someone would say, well, you know, no one ever thinks a library property is going to get sold. I don't think that would ever happen in our lifetime. But, you know, gee, what if, you know, someday libraries become obsolete and this property gets sold? Now you've rezoned the whole thing business. You know, what's that mean? You know, more, you know, bigger use could go there, and, you know, but our bylaw actually has a provision that any town-owned property is in what's called, there's an overlay district, which is called the municipal district. And there's a provision in our bylaw, if the town is ever going to sell a piece of property, prior to town meeting authorizing the sale, there has to be an article on town meeting that downzones that property to the most restrictive district that it abuts, which would be the general residence district. So there would have to be an article that would not only, would actually rezone the whole property general residence, that would have to be presented to town meeting. So that's it. You know, from the bank's perspective, Bob's here, you know, to be, you know, as you know, I mean, the bank, you know, and I'll say this, I mean, they're my client, but, you know, I think we all know, I've grown up in Wakefield and lived here all my life. The savings bank does, you know, everything they possibly can to help the town. So, you know, they only want to do good for the town, and they always do good for the town. They're such philanthropists, and they give and give and give. So when it was presented to them that when you do this, you should include the library property as part of your thing, you know, they didn't even hesitate. Well, if that's good for the town and we're doing this anyways, then we'll do that. It's kind of ironic because we're starting to get concerned a little bit. I know Bob is, that, you know, we don't want to kind of get caught up in this because as I mentioned, this really doesn't have anything to do with what they're doing here. So, you know, and the planning board wants to know how your board feels about it, you know, and, you know, whether you would be inclined to support it or not support it. And, you know, that's why we're here. Bob, do you have anything to add?
Well, I would just say that I think you've captured it pretty well. You know, we just want to put up a two-story building where the Hartshorn property is, and it will look very much like our existing buildings. And, you know, the town asked us to consider, you know, bringing the library property in to straighten out the zoning line. And so we were happy to do it. And, you know, as Brian said, we really don't need it for our project, but we did it because the town had requested to straighten out that line.
Personally, I think it makes sense to have the property listed as all one thing. I mean, I don't think anything is going to change in our tenure as trustees. But, you know, nobody expected to be in their houses for 6 weeks. So you never know what will happen. I don't see it's any detriment to the library. So it seems like it's an okay thing for me, my opinion. And we, you know, the library trustees and the whole library community always appreciates the savings bank, especially at Blossoms, if that ever happens again. But it's happened many times. I'm hoping it happens again.
Thank you, Sue.
Brian, what impact does the rezoning have on the group home? Is that will move completely from residential to business? Are they considered a residential?
Yeah, I don't see any impact on it because they're, you know, group homes are exempt under zoning. They're protected under federal law.
Okay.
So, but as Paul said, it could affect, you know, potentially what happens with that business in the future, potentially. Rezoning that helps us, to be honest, because because when you abut a general residence district, you have to create some buffers. So to have that zone business actually helps the bank with their proposal.
Yeah.
Have the owners of the group home waited on this?
No.
Do they know about it?
I don't think they know about the zoning change. No. No.
But they're going to be required to get notice when it goes forward.
Right.
Yeah,
It is going forward.
I mean, the
It's
bottom,
going
the
to-
way,
it's going to affect them either way, whether we, and I see it as a benefit. Getting the back half of that large zone business, I see as a benefit for the library. But the group home is going to get the same effect, whether we get a benefit or not.
yeah, and I can tell you this, it's very interesting how zoning works. And Paul knows this, that, you can, any property owner can amend a zoning bylaw, and 10 taxpayers can amend the map. So if somebody wanted to amend my property and change it, I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, that's going to go to town meeting. Just because I don't like it, it's happened to clients of mine a number of times that their properties are put up for rezoning, and it's for the town to decide, because town meeting decides what's best for the town. So anyone's property is subject to be rezoned by town meeting, whether they like it or not, to be honest with you. And I've had some clients that haven't liked it, but that's just the way the process works.
So I don't think the question is whether or not anyone wants to stop it or not. The question is, how do our neighbors feel about this? As you point out, regardless of what this body says, this is going to go forward. So
yeah, but to be honest, I can tell you this, I really believe this. So let's say your body said, you know what, we don't like this. I think we will go back to the planning board on Tuesday night, and they're going to want to know how you feel. And if you don't like it, we're going to take it out. We're going to take that out. We're going to go to town meeting, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, we want to amend our proposed map and remove the library.
Yeah.
Because we've met with the library trustees, and they don't want that to happen.
That's good information. Thank you. I'm not concerned about the library. It sounds like a win for the library, and if there was nobody in between us and the savings bank, I would say let's just go vote and say yes. If it's just us and the savings bank, I think it's a slam dunk. Me personally, at town meeting, I'm going to vote for this, but I'd like to know how the library is impacting its neighbors before we draft up an opinion here in the trustees.
Got it.
So
What has the Mueller law firm said?
That is one of the things that I was concerned about, the people who live behind us. That house that is behind us. And if the church was struck by lightning and burnt down, if that had been the library that was struck and burnt down, and that building was gone, and the entire thing is zoned as the zoning is changed, the entire lot is changed. What Brian had explained about how if the town sells that land, it reverts to the most restrictive. That means it's going to revert. If the town sells it, it will revert to general residents, and that protects those people behind us. So they will always have a library there, and if they don't have a library there, they're going to have to change the zoning before it would be business.
Yeah, and
that's I don't think lightning is going to strike twice. Let's hope.
Yep. And I want to, and Catherine, thank you for bringing that up, because I want to clarify that for you folks in making your decision. So what the bylaw actually says, and maybe I misstated it, it says that prior to the town meeting voting to authorize the sale, there has to be an article presented to downzone the property, okay? That part of the bylaw doesn't say that has to pass.
Right.
So, so I want to be careful, so so you're well informed in making this, and I'm not misrepresenting something. So if this was all zone business and this was going to be sold, there would have to be an article presented prior to authorizing the sale to downzone it to general residence, but that could fail at town meeting.
Right.
And it could be sold as business. And I don't think I adequately informed you of that. And that's why you said it the way I had originally kind of presented that. So I'm glad you brought that up again. Thank you. So, But the other thing which is unique about this is, so let's say, even if that got zoned general residence in a down zone, we have a municipal reuse bylaw that basically says that if this was sold to a private person, that the planning board via special permit can almost authorize anything here. And that's how the Franklin School got redeveloped, right, Paul?
Well, we put the Franklin School in the municipal reuse overlay district.
Yeah,
You'd have to put this in that municipal reuse overlay district.
that's right. But that would be part of the sale. I mean, that's, yeah. So, I mean, it's
There's
pretty
no-
complicated.
There's no guarantee that that would happen, but
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see if God forbid something happens to the library, we've had enough problem, enough bad things happen in town with fires, but if God forbid that ever happened, I don't think you're going to see something that the town doesn't want to happen on that key piece of property, and probably another library.
So I tend to agree with Susan and Jeff, actually. I think that from a library perspective, we're going to be much more likely to try to get creative with commercial zoning than we would with residential zoning. So if we wanted to do something in the future, we'd be in a better position to have it fully zoned. Brian, maybe you can help just correct my understanding. So currently that group home is a commercial use that is allowed in a residential zone. And the only difference to them at this point would be that now there would be a commercial use that is in a commercial zone. So the only real difference is that they wouldn't be able to sell it as a house. It would have to be sold as a commercial property.
So it's actually, the way it works is group homes have been classified by the federal courts as single family houses. That's how they've been classified, that they basically say that they're in essence a family entity, and that's how that's how they can go in. Sometimes you hear, Jesus, a group home in my neighborhood, how'd that happen? That's what the courts have said, is that they're single family. They classify them as single family homes. Single family homes are allowed by right in the business district. So there's really, there's nothing to me, as Chris Barrett said, if I own this property, I'd be ecstatic. It doesn't have any impact on the group home, but it's only going to expand the possibilities. And maybe the group home won't be there because maybe there'll be more valuable uses for that property than that. Who knows? I don't know. Paul, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a group home is treated as almost like a discrimination case, and the state statutes allow that to require that the zoning officials
It's 7:45.
treat that as a single family home so that it can go almost anywhere. And the building inspector has to treat it as a single family home. Usually we don't know where a group home is going to be located in the town, because they are not required to give us any kind of notice as far as zoning goes. They can just take any single family house and turn it into a group home, as long as it's used as a group home that's licensed by the state. So say if this property owner decides he doesn't want to continue leasing it out as a group home, he could take the building down or convert it to something else, some other use, but it would be right now controlled by the general residence zone. He could only do uses allowed in the general residence zone. By rezoning it to business, we've actually upgraded his property so that if he took the group home down or changed the use, he could go do a business use in there, such as a law office. So it's...
Property taxes would be higher on it as a business zoning than a residential zoning, wouldn't it?
Goes more by the use. That's how the assessor looks at what's happening on the property.
I try not to answer questions for the assessor's office because...
Yeah, I know. I don't know, Cindy, maybe you're right, but that would be my
Those
take.
rules are really tricky for how the taxes are handled.
Yeah.
Well, because there's commercial zoning and there's residential zoning. I mean, rates, tax rates. There's residential tax rates and there's commercial tax rates.
Well, the senior housing across the street, Brightview,
right?
you'd think that's a business. It's in a business zone. but it's not. It's classified as a residential use.
Yeah, they get tax residential rates.
Okay.
So I
As
don't
do
know.
the multifamilies, as do the multifamilies. So some of the multifamilies that get built are in business districts, but they get taxed as residential. So that is how it will be.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw one more piece of information at you because I want you to be as informed as possible. So there's another provision in our bylaw that this whole property is in the municipal district, right, Paul? Because it's town-owned property.
Mhm.
And there's a provision in our bylaw that tries to.
I really want to have you, let's check that. I think the front part of it is in the municipal municipal district, but not the back part, but I don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, well, I'm going to give you the information. So let's assume that it was in the whole thing was in the municipal district. There's a provision in our bylaw that says if a town-owned piece of property is in the municipal district, no matter what zone it's in, it gets the benefit of the least restrictive zone that it abuts, to try to give the town some benefits. So if this were a lot on its own, right, one could say, well, it abuts the business district, so it gets the benefit of the business district, so you don't need to even change the zoning. But because of the kind of scattered history of this, and where it is a split lot, and you go back to this, I don't know how that plays out. And to me, it's better just to change it. Just change the underlying zoning. It doesn't hurt to do it, even though there potentially is an argument that you could benefit because you touch a business district. I just don't know how that plays out with the split lot history of this. And to me, why play it out when you can just change the line anyways? But, again, I want you to be as well informed as possible. And that also would not, the thing that's interesting with that is that would not take care of this problem with the street, because it would only deal with your lot. So in rezoning the street, we do it halfway across because you want it to be consistent. That can wreak havoc with what you try to do here too. So.
All right, does anybody have any more questions, concerns?
This is Paul here. What would be useful is if the board decided that they didn't particularly like this idea, it would be very good to be able to make an amendment to this proposal before town meeting, so that when we go to town meeting, there isn't a long discussion about whether the library should be in or whether the library should be out, especially by the board, the trustees of the library. That would be very confusing on the floor of town meeting. If the library board would prefer that it be taken out, now is a good time to do that, rather than at the last minute, the night of town meeting. Then this whole amendment could be changed and brought forward immediately as it's proposed and brought up as a motion. And the motion would be amended to change and take this property out. I don't want to have you pressured to vote right now, but it would be useful to know that before town meeting, so that Brian can adjust his proposal, because this is essentially a citizen's proposal by the savings bank proposing this zoning change. And the attorney's office across from you on Avon Street, they also signed the petition, and they were also a petitioner. The group homeowner was not party to the petition. So they may be surprised when they go to town meeting and find that this is being proposed. I don't know how we want to address that, Brian, but that might be an awkward thing to happen on the floor of town meeting.
But Paul, isn't notice required for a zoning change to all the abutters?
No,
Really?
no. Only notice by publication. And then if a property owner wants to get notice of any zoning changes, they have to file a letter with the town assessor's office letting them know that. And then if they have a letter on file, then they will get a notice of the zoning change affecting their property. But if they've not done that, they don't receive notice.
Well, from my real estate perspective, there's nothing but benefit for them value-wise with what they're doing. They're party to something that enhances the value of their property.
Well, back in the mid 60s, the planning board essentially took major swaths of land all across the town and zoned it from general residence to single residence. And it was simply an act of the planning board making the recommendation to do that, proposing the map, publicizing it in the newspaper 2 weeks and 1 week before the meeting. It goes on the town warrant. The town warrant's published in the newspaper. There's notice there. It's posted at different places around the town. And then if you attend town meeting, you have the benefit of having the handouts and knowing what's happening as the motions are made. So those are the old style, town crier type, tack the notice on the tree from the 1700s procedures that zoning essentially has. It's only the newer ideas like Conservation Commission where you do get notice to abutters and green cards and registered mail. That doesn't happen with zoning. It doesn't happen with zoning. Zoning it was written back in the 1920s. Is when it was first created under like the Hoover administration.
And from the bank's perspective, what they're proposing and who's proposed this, the bank thinks this is a good change. And, and the bank will benefit from this change, on this side of the street in many respects. So, it's within their right to propose the change. So as Chris Barrett said, we don't think there's going to be an adverse impact on that person anyways. Only a benefit at the end of the day.
Paul, this is Tim Healy. Who currently owns the law office building?
Scully and Snyder.
Oh, they still own it?
Yes. Yeah, Simiola and Scully. It's in a trust.
Okay. All right. It's because it seems to me that just looking at the lot lines, if they ever sold that property to the savings bank, there would be a benefit to the bank and currently exists right now.
True.
I'm just saying, just a note, just a comment. It's not saying anything either way.
That's a good point, Tim. I mean, both of those properties potentially in future dates could go to the bank, potentially.
Yeah. My look on this looks like a no-brainer to me. Just my opinion is that we should be doing this. We should recommend that to the planning board that would they move forward with this. It certainly cleans up a lot of the library, and that would it may have no impact one way or the other over the long haul, but it might sometime. But it seems like a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, I think it seems like an opportunity for us to potentially have benefits down the road. You may not see exactly how to spell them out right now, but I think it's an opportunity.
I want to sort of address the post office. The one time there may have been a proposal to close the post office. The post office was closed in Reading. If the GSA took the post office, which is a big parcel of land, and decided to sell it, having it zoned the way it is now, residential in the back, is going to restrict them. They're going to have to bring their proposal through a planning process to rezone the land, change the land, present what they propose. If it were zoned business, all business, and that parcel is very deep. It's much deeper than the library parcel. That might be problematic for whoever's the town planner 20 years from now, dealing with that, if that library, if the post office ever closed. So from a strategy perspective, I would say keep the post office zone the way it is now and not increase that to a business zone in the back. I don't know if you still have that map, Brian, the former previous assessor's map, but you can see how deep the lot
There
is.
you go. Yep.
You see how deep,
Oh, yeah.
and it would certainly impact, a lot of the residential lots around it.
Good point, Paul. I think what Paul's saying is we trust the town with town-owned land, but
We don't trust the GSA.
the GSA is going to put it out to open bid, and whoever gets it gets it. And good luck. That's all they do. They sell their stuff on an open bid online. That's how they sold that Tarrant Lane property up on the on Hopkins Street. They just it was like a blind bid online. So very good point, Paul. Didn't think of that.
It's not one that I would want to explain at town meeting, but it's something to answer the question that was raised earlier. Why not do that one as well? And you can see how deep that would be if you rezone that whole property business.
Very good point.
So when you mention town meeting, we would probably need to be prepared to speak to this at town meeting because there's a possibility that someone attending might want to know from a library trustee that yes or no or whatever you feel. And the other thing is the planning board meets next on Tuesday, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Tuesday night on
Okay.
this.
So we'd want to be able to speak to the planning board on Tuesday.
They would like to hear from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really would. To their credit, they're very, they want to hear from the library trustees before. They want to know how you feel before they make their recommendation. I don't think they want to make a recommendation that you don't want. I think that's where they're kind of coming from.
Okay, so does that mean you want someone at the meeting, or is that if a vote is taken tonight, that's good enough?
I think a vote is fine, Paul, don't you? I'll defer it to Paul because he's the liaison to the planning board. What do you?
I think a vote is fine, but it would be terrific if
If not, yeah, if a trustee is not available, I could represent the trustees at the planning board meeting. I don't even have to leave home.
Right?
Nobody
Yes,
does.
it'd be a Zoom meeting.
That's true. All right, does anyone else have any more questions?
Just a reminder of when the town meeting is. Sorry, I know the date has changed, so I've lost
Yeah.
track.
June 8th?
June 8th. Thank you.
If that ever happens.
Oh, that's the current date.
That might change, yeah.
Somebody told me Linfield is thinking of doing a drive-in town meeting at the Market Street.
Drive-in?
Well, they would park their cars or something. That's what I was told the other day.
Like a drive-in theater.
Yeah, like a drive-in theater. that you can
Look
stay
at
in
a big
your car.
screen and have a little thing at your window that you speak into?
There's a little starlight. Starlight
Just
down
gets
there.
better and better, doesn't it, Catherine?
How about a Zoom town meeting? We'll have 150 people on the screen, right?
Oh.
Okay, so does anyone else have anything further?
No.
The folks on the call? If not, then I'll entertain a motion if someone wants to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to endorse the Savings Bank's plan going
Chris,
forward.
are you on the board of directors?
No,
Okay, I thought you were.
nope.
All
I have
right.
I actually have no affiliation with the Savings Bank other than a couple first-time buyer seminars.
Okay,
Michael's the one.
all right.
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Okay, motion carries.
Was that Amy seconding?
Yes.
That was Amy's
Great,
second. Yep.
thank you.
So we're on record, at least the minutes will reflect a vote in favor of the proposal from the Savings Bank. And then for purposes of planning board meeting on Tuesday, we can talk, Catherine, offline if anyone's available, the trustees, or if Catherine's available, someone can zoom in on that meeting as well to speak to the planning board about the vote tonight, the discussion we had tonight, and further advise the planning board as to why we recommended the plan as proposed by the savings bank. Does that work?
Yes.
Yeah, we can make some arrangements.
Okay. All right. Anything further, Brian?
No,
Paul?
Mr. Chairman, I can't thank you enough for your time and
Oh.
attention. And Catherine, thank you so much for your persistence in getting this set up.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mayor, thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Hour.
Have a good night.
All right. We'll continue with our meeting. Thanks very much. Great presentation.
Stay safe.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So
All right. Give me my screen back.
let me.
There you go.
There you go.
Magic.
All right. So why don't we continue on with the rest of the agenda? We'll go back up to the acceptance. Of the secretary's report. If someone wants to make a motion to accept the secretary's report?
Seconded.
Okay. Who made the motion? Sorry, I didn't hear it.
Cindy.
Cindy. Okay. Seconds. Discussion? Any discussion?
No.
No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to accept the monthly staff reports?
So moved.
So I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion.
I just had a quick comment. I think the library staff are doing a great job on their social media and the virtual programming you guys are doing. I mentioned this, but I think you guys have increased the Overdrive numbers to make, or got some books on Overdrive and increased the Hoopla numbers, and I think that's people appreciate it who are into those things. But just honestly, even with the other posts, I feel like I'm getting to know the personality of the librarians a little bit more because we're seeing them in their houses and doing story times and everything. So it's been really great to see that. And I think, pretty quickly after everything shut down, you guys, they were jumping on and trying to do stuff and trying to get creative. So I just wanted to give them kudos for that, and that I'm certainly enjoying it.
Thank you. I am going to mention too, and Jackie is the one who took one for the team. They did trivia last night. They had 50 people on Zoom doing
Oh, no.
Wow.
playing trivia, and they figured out who won, and they scored it, and I don't know, I did a book group and lost people in the middle of the Zoom thing. So I think that's a big challenge to do that.
Great. So I had a question on the, it says here that because of the pandemic, the financial implications, have you come up with anything, Catherine, about what adjustments may have to be made for the library's budget at all? Or is it sort of preliminary right now? That you're thinking?
It's all very preliminary,
Okay.
and Steve Mayo meets with us weekly. And so he's keeping us up to date with the most recent numbers and what he sees, and he talks with finance committee and everything. So if they're nervous about something, they're going to tell me. I know that I'm going to have enough time to consider what we have to do and be able to bring that to you, to talk to you about it. So I feel very in the loop, and I feel like I'll have enough time to get all the trustees in the loop as well. So I for this year, we're fine. It's stay the course, and then we'll just see from there on out what's going to happen next. But so far, so good.
So we don't anticipate any impacts to the 21 budget?
Possibly. And we know that there's going to be less money. They know that there's less coming in. So it looks like it's possible that we could lose something like capital. So it's all a little bit up in the air, but I think that will be, I think it will be manageable.
Catherine, the two big projects that we've talked about was the carpet replacement and then the website redesign.
Mhm.
So I imagine everything is still on hold for both of
Well,
those,
the website redesign, we actually have money set aside for.
okay.
So that's fine. It's the carpeting that is, that's on the list for upcoming budgeting from the town. And, you know, that's likely to not be a necessity under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What was the cost on that?
The carpeting,
Yes.
we had put in $60,000 to do the entire main floor. I could break it up and do it. I could do the main floor addition, circulation and reference. I could do that area for about 40,000. But given the circumstances, I would imagine carpet is not gonna win.
High on the list.
Yeah, that's not gonna be high on the list. And to be honest, it's not something under the circumstances that I mind giving up. That's something that, you know, we can manage that. We can manage that. And so that's not going to affect our services.
Do you have a sense of how the reports are really great, and I'll echo what Adam said. I'm just really grateful for how quickly you and your staff were able to transition, like literally in minutes. Just a general sense of how folks like staff are holding up and like patrons. It seems like they're taking advantage of all the digital assets, but any kind of commentary on that?
I have the sense that we're getting to the point where people need they need something uplifting. They don't necessarily need, you know, we're their information resource. We were talking about the newsletter, and Jackie had pointed out to me that she thought advertising our offerings that people can come and tune into was probably the most important thing, and providing things where people can communicate with us if they want to. That's pretty important too, that people have a line of communication. If we can get as much access to e-materials as we can possibly get to people, that would be good. But I have the sense now that lifting people's spirits is very important. So if we, if you see pictures of cats, that's pretty much where we're going at this point. Anything to kind of pass the day in a useful way, optimistically.
In a good distraction way, and that's
Yeah.
And I agree with what Adam said, that, you know, like some of the things that, although I don't have any young children here, I've looked at some of the things they're doing in the crafts and stuff. That is so unique to see them doing that, because that's what they do all the time in the programs, but like you're seeing it when you normally wouldn't. And I was like, that is pretty awesome. And I didn't think of it, but that was a very good point that Adam made, that people are really seeing the library staff, and it kind of gives credence to the fact that libraries are not dead. And you know, so I think that after this, there could be a bigger flux of people at the library. So I think that staff has done a great job, but it has been, I think, a unique experience for people tuning in all that. So
I'm hoping that's the case, because we have, you know, diehard supporters that have, or the diehard users, who I think they know who Jeff is. They, you know, they see people in the street and they know. The children's librarians, they know them because they have children. But I think this social media stuff and the stuff on WCAT is getting out to a different audience and getting out to people who maybe never came into the building. So yeah, so those personal things, the fact that there's people here.
And libraries are relevant, even though it's not just books. It really drives home that case. So in some ways, it's been good advertisement for the library, although it is probably a very different kind of thing that any of you bought into. I mean, you are doing a great job.
I know. It's a silver lining.
Yeah, we need a win.
Catherine, for staff who didn't take home everything they needed the day the library closed, were they able to go back and get anything? For instance, I ran into one department head walking in the neighborhood who had not taken a laptop home and did not have a laptop, you know, that could be used all the time for library work purposes. So I'm kind of was wondering whether that happened to a number of our staff.
No, and I'm not familiar with that issue because I had spoken with everyone and to make sure that everybody did have access. And so, you know, I know some people are just using tablets and phones because that's their choice.
Okay.
But I could have had equipment shipped to people if I couldn't get into the building, and there are laptops in the building. So, Jackie, are you here?
Yes.
Oh, okay, there you are. You have a library laptop at home, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and we did meet the day that we closed. We had a meeting that very day.
Right.
So we were working on continuity and had just set the plan when Steve Mayo called. So it was all very fresh. I think
everyone was told to take what they needed.
Well, this person didn't. And this person has and I don't want to say who it is in front of everybody, but this person has a spouse. You know, they have a laptop at home and the spouse is working from home. And so they're sharing the home laptop, but it's you know,
that was worked out. I know who that is, and it was,
yeah,
he was able to get one.
In the early days, it wasn't working out as well from the report that person told me face to face. So that's why I was wondering.
Well, we talk every day.
Okay.
And I send a newsletter once a week to everybody. And I include information on the Employee Assistance Program for mental health services and any kind of issues. And I'm as open as absolutely possible. I don't want people in the building because Steve Mayo and Ruth Clay don't want anyone in the building. So we've talked about that. So early on, I was not letting people go and get things in the building, but I did tell people that I would order stuff and have it shipped to the house to their home because we could always use it.
So additional stuff that we don't already own.
Right. And so if somebody needed a laptop, I would have done that. But early on, I recall offering that and having someone say that no, that they didn't need it, that they would work it out. So as far as I know, everybody has worked stuff out. The one that's been the trickiest was Nancy Sheehan has, Nancy might not have internet service.
Oh.
I don't know if she uses her cell phone or, but she's doing everything. She does story times and everything. So, you know, we have patrons that don't have access.
Oh, yeah.
So we think in terms of alternate ways of doing things.
Is the library Wi-Fi still on?
Yeah, it's always on. So you can sit in front of it and get the Wi-Fi from there.
I saw someone sitting on the steps the other day. I didn't know if they were using the Wi-Fi or not.
It's possible. Nancy Sheehan went down early on and was like going down the whole street to see where it went. Because you can get it across the street and you can get it a little bit down Avon. And it used to be you could get it as far as the bread shop.
Wow.
I was getting it in the State Bank conference room.
You could get it really far, yeah.
Catherine, something just came, you know, it's been coming up a lot in my area of the world, but in the CARES Act, one of the provisions that is through the funding for the schools, there's a lot of money in there to have them pass that on to programs that support summer learning and learning loss prevention. So I think the schools are still trying to dig through all the CARES Act stuff that they're getting right now, but there are, I don't know if you've heard anything about it, but there are funding available for, specifically it's for summer learning and summer learning loss prevention, things like that, that the schools will get access to, but they're supposed to either do their own programs or pass it through to other local agencies to do that.
Oh, so
I can send you some information on it too.
Yeah, do that, and I'll connect to whoever I can to see. I'm sure they'll find a way to use it, but
Well, I think that the library could be a really great partner for the schools in summer learning law, and because the kids aren't going back to school, and if they go back in the fall, which we all, knock on wood, hope they will, then we'll need to be doing some supportive learning outside of school time and everything to catch up. And I think the library can be a great partner in that, and I think that hopefully the school sees that the same way.
Yeah.
MBLC has announced that they have CARES money.
Noble has something, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
now.
MBLC announced it today or yesterday.
Okay.
Anybody else for the discussion on the monthly staff reports?
A question, you said, Catherine, that Dave is checking the building periodically.
Mhm.
Is he going in or is
Yeah.
he just going?
No, he's been going in. Yeah. He usually calls me, and he was in there today checking for something that we got a bill for something, and he wanted to make sure he had received it. So he went in, he texted me, he said, I was there, everything's fine. When there's heavy rain, sometimes he'll stop in just to make sure there were no leaks or anything. And the building was cleaned professionally. So he checked up on that too and made sure that they did what they said they were going to do.
So Dave can't work from home, but he's still employed? How does that work?
Yeah, he can't work from home, but he's still employed.
Okay, good.
That, and the idea sort of behind it is that he's going to be more employed than any of us when we
Oh,
go
gosh,
back.
Yeah.
he's going to be catching up big time.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, he works so hard on a normal day that I would not want to lose him.
Yeah, he's we have some remote access to stuff, so he keeps an eye on it. We had an alarm go off, and he was right on it and contacted me, and we figured out what was going on. So he's available 24/7, and he's very hyper.
Yeah.
So if you can, I had to make him not go in. He'll probably go and do yard work.
Yeah, I was going to say he's probably going a little bit crazy, but I would hate to lose him. He's very valuable.
I know. He is. He does a good job, and he knows a lot about what he's doing and everything. So.
Well, he's in the union. I assume he's in the union.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't think we can do anything without getting union approval for laying off people. But
Right. The town is kind of staying the course. It's all budgeted. The money is all there.
Right.
I think at the library we feel responsible. There are lots of people out of work, and we want to show that we're making good use of that tax-funded, the tax-supported payroll that is, designed to support the library. So we're gonna just keep working.
Right.
And we are, but the town has, it's all been budgeted for, so it's fine.
All right. Anything further from anybody else on the staff reports? Once, twice. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one opposed. The motion carries. Correspondence. I didn't see anything on committee reports that we need to talk about, Catherine.
I don't think so. I'm looking for the committees.
Budget.
You're right. No, there's nothing on the budget.
Okay.
I'll get that. I'll get it to you probably next month.
Okay.
Building and grounds are fine. Friends are finding ways to meet. So whoever is next, I'll contact you if the friends are going to meet in May.
Did they have their event?
They did. They had the event. I went to the, I've been to the January, February, March, and April meetings, plus a couple others, and to the Friends event on March the 8th. Very well attended. They were very pleased with the turnout for that. They have a number of people who are interested in working the book sale. We had set up a date to meet with those people at the Herd School, and then the town closed. So we were going to do that on like the 20th of March. So we canceled that. And we are now in making phone call contacts to all the people who came to the March 8 event. But there were people interested in doing a lot of different things with the Friends. A lot of people were very new, and then there were people who were reestablishing their contact with the Friends. So it was a great turnout. It was a great event. And we actually had someone from the Stoneham Friends show up and was very impressed with what we were doing and saying, come talk to us. They were going to probably do the WCNA's Festival by the Lake, but that's not happening now. And we had a meeting on Tuesday night, WCNA Board of Directors, and we decided that we are not even going to do the festival later this summer or fall. We'll just wait till next year. So the Friends won't be having their book sale, at least not for the foreseeable future, and they won't be participating in the festival. They'll just be getting their staff ready for getting them trained when they have a chance to get people together.
They're not collecting at all right now, right?
No, there was one donation that came in from someone's house who had been closed up since the fall, that was just sitting for weeks, and that has been taken in, and that's been sitting solo for several weeks as well. But there's no active collection going on.
I was at the last meeting. I think I was at the last meeting. I can't remember now, Cindy. Was I at the last meeting? Okay.
Yeah, you and I were together at the
Okay.
annual meeting.
And I was just, I probably hadn't been there since the last time, and boy, what a change in just the sort of the members, and sort of the energy level was, I thought was, Cindy was doing the best she could of trying to get people motivated and excited about the Friends, but what a contrast. I mean, I couldn't believe the change in just the personalities that were there. And so I'm hoping that, I'm glad there was a great turnout, because that was the big agenda item they talked about, was this event they were having in March. And
yeah,
they did a lot of work on it, and they really are, I think my viewpoint was they desperately need new people and some folks who just wanted to sort of re-energize that organization, because I think they're sort of, not stumbling, but I think they're in a really difficult spot right now.
They are, because they have several new young people who don't have the history of it, who've been with it for maybe 18 months. And they have a couple of new older people who don't have more than 2 years worth of experience with the Friends. And so they're kind of like stumbling together, trying to get a vision of what the Friends are without really having any experience with even any other Friends group.
Yeah.
And then there are some people such as Nancy Tollison and I and Jody and Susan Kilkelly, none of which really Susan Kilkelly's been brought back into the Friends to be the secretary, but she had come off the board. Nancy Tollison, Jody, and I, none of us have official positions. And we're the ones with the history.
Yeah, I know.
So
yeah.
We're trying to, gently bring these people along and making sure that they're all getting along and everyone's being heard. And at the same time, which is why I've gone to 4 monthly meetings in a row now, and hopefully bringing new people in. So Nancy Tollison and I are the ones making the calls to the new people who attended the meeting, the open house meeting, as it were, in March. And all of the board of directors, Nancy and I and Jody and some of the new directors talked at that open house. And people came and stayed for long periods of time at that event. And people came before it was officially open. Someone was there at 5 of the hour, and people stayed to the very end. And they stayed for 20, 30, 45 minutes. And we handed people off. So we made sure they talked to multiple members of the board of directors and Friends. So people didn't get just a one-sided view of what it's like, because they talked to a number of different people. So I think it's going to, the next year could be very good for the
Good.
Friends.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Okay. Any gift funds? Anything on gift funds other than the stock market's gone through the investments,
I
but-
do not.
Okay.
Yeah, I did get some reports from the First Financial Trust too. So I'll have that set up for the next meeting.
Okay.
They are dropping.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
expected. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Legislative advocacy, anything, Cindy?
Well, there's, we would have been having our event down at the State House. But, all contact now has got to be by email and by phone as opposed to large groups getting together. I did go to the legislative advocacy event at Peabody, and Jackie was there as well. And there were some very good speakers. I have some good notes that I will write up and get out to everybody. I'll get those ready, pulled together for the next meeting.
Okay.
And I brought back, none of our representatives were there, but I brought back extra packets for them. So
Okay.
it was they had it in a small room. It would be as if we had it in our children's glass encased room, and set up only half the number of chairs, the people that you were expecting to come. Like, what? I didn't think it was the best planned event, but everyone has to have their opportunity to give it a try.
Yeah. Okay, great. Nothing on personnel. I don't have anything on personnel. So,
Nope.
all right. Anything else for new business? Going once, twice. Okay, so then for Tuesday, Catherine, I think I'm available for that meeting, so we can talk offline, and for purpose of schedule, if other people want to attend, I assume it's a virtual meeting like this was.
Yeah, and the posting will be on the town website, so you just click on and you can be there. So anybody who wants to, you don't even have to put your video on. You can just
Lurk.
Exactly.
Okay, so why don't we could
Undercover stalking.
Yeah, if we could confirm, I'll plan on doing it. So it's Tuesday, what time? 7? Do you know?
Yeah, but you know what, Kevin, make sure you check. Some of those agendas get hourly long. See where you are on the agenda.
Okay.
You might not need to tune in till 8:30 or 10 or something.
Okay. All right. Okay. Others can feel free to join too. I mean, there's no reason why others don't want, if others want to jump in and participate for some reason, that if they want, that's fine too. But I'll plan on doing it next Tuesday. And then if others want to join, they're more than welcome to as well. And then our next meeting, do we have a date? Is it going to be May?
It was scheduled on the bottom.
20th?
Yeah, it was scheduled for May 20th, so we could stick to that.
It's fine with me if that's fine with others, unless you want to do it, unless we have to do it sometime sooner than that, but I'm fine with May 20th.
Right. I think May 20th will be fine. We'll probably have more information by then.
Okay.
The longer we go, probably. And that's still well before town meeting, so.
Yeah.
And I think I'm the next Friends, so let me know.
Oh, right, okay.
What is the current date to theoretically reopen, even though it's not really going to happen? Like, how late does the current closure go through?
May 4th.
4th.
Well, I think the town is July, right?
Schools.
The town.
I don't.
Depends whose closure you're looking for.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
It
I
was
believe
May
the
4th.
original state was May 4th,
Right.
but now we've got schools through
Into June.
September.
Yeah.
June 29th. Yeah, so the AmeriCal is July, is the weekend right after. So it's like July 6th or whatever that first Monday in July is.
Yeah,
Right.
July 6th.
Great.
So would we fall under the same as the AmeriCal as a town building?
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
So at this point, we're definitely not opening until July 6th. Because people have started asking, especially with school being out for the rest of the year, people are kind of starting to wonder, like, well, when might the library be open?
Even it's also complicated by the fact that libraries are connected statewide. So it's not even just what Wakefield decides to do, it's what delivery decides to do, what the Board of Library Commissioners decides, what Mass Library System decides, because you're all connected to everybody else. I have several surrounding directors have contacted me so that we can all be in touch so that nobody makes a decision that's going to affect somebody else negatively. We're trying to kind of all keep in touch. And most people are thinking in terms of something that's gradual. First, get people in the building, workers, and figure out how you're going to work without being right on top of one another. Figure out how you're going to handle the materials. You know, there's a lot of information we just don't have yet. And I know that people are anxious, which is in one way is really nice that people are anxious to get in. They want materials. I read that book sales are through the roof because people can just buy from home, and that's what they're doing because you're running out of things to do. You can only watch Tiger Man for so long, and then you decide to read about tigers.
The little free libraries around town are getting busy. There's people that have the little free libraries in front of their houses. And, everyone's cleaning out their closets, getting rid of books, filling up the little free libraries, and, people.
They can't give the book sales.
Yeah, I think from the town's perspective, what I'm hearing a lot is stay home, stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask. And if you can stay home, because it's the more of us that are out, the more that increases the difficulties. So I don't really know. I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen next. But we have to be able to open safely. And there's just too much about the virus that we don't know yet. So I don't know how you open safely when you don't really know how it transmits.
What safe is.
What's safe. We don't know how it transmits, and we don't know who's susceptible to it. We don't even know who has it.
So the usual summer plans of like Plaza Jazz, summer reading program, are those just up in the air right now? Or are they canceled? Are they?
It's up in the air. As much as we can do virtually, we'll do virtually. I don't see any right now, and I can't say this for a fact, but I don't foresee any way that you get a group of people anywhere, even outside, doing anything. I don't see how you can put 100 people on the plaza. It's not even responsible to encourage people to come to an event like that. So can we put some jazz players on the plaza and film them? Or can we put them in the Gold Room and film them? Or could they just send us something and we'll film it? Maybe that might be a possibility. And maybe not every single week, but a certain number of them. I don't know. And summer reading is going to have to be totally reimagined. And I'm not sure what that will be yet, but I think when we give it a little time to gel, we might really come up with something really, really interesting.
So as of now, you don't have Plaza Jazz people because...
No, well, I sort of do. So I'm going to have to get in touch with Zach.
I was going to say, because usually by now you have the whole list and we're talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, he has people. His people probably aren't even traveling now. He gets a lot of people who are he catches them when they're flying into Boston.
Right.
Nobody's flying into Boston now. So I will talk to him and see what we might be able to do about that and what other people are doing. And how we can find a way. Yeah, we're just gonna have to think about it. We've got a little bit of time because we're all home on Zoom, switching ideas.
And it's kind of still winter. I don't know.
It's cold. Yeah.
It's nice today.
But anybody who has a question can email me anytime. I'm probably going to say the same thing, safety first. I'm very happy that people want to get back in the building. I do too. I was in the building today, actually. And it was a little bit eerie because everything that's up on the wall is from March. So it's, I'd love to be back. I'm sure Jackie would love to be back. So we'll get there.
All right. Anything else from anybody?
Do we have a
Okay, so
meeting
we'll plan-
scheduled?
we'll plan on,
We have a what?
Do we have a meeting scheduled for after elections?
Oh, after, when's the election?
June,
It's after town meeting.
June 23rd.
June 23rd.
It's really late.
So we want a meeting after the election, is that what you're saying? Yeah, we will.
Well, we usually meet to elect officers at first meeting
Right.
after the election.
Right.
It's something we could kick that down the road to the fall. It's just something that
Yeah,
occurred to
well,
me.
well, the June meeting is scheduled for the 17th and we could move it to the 24th, which is just the following week. We can talk about it in May.
Yeah, just something for the back of your brain.
Yep.
Well, since there's not going to be any change to our board, does it really matter that we meet after elections versus before in June?
I don't know.
It's the same board.
We usually vote on, oh yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. We'll figure it out in May.
Town council is going to be doing their voting of changing their officers before the elections because they usually do it whenever they do it in April, early May, because there's going to be no change to their board.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, if
Go ahead and
there's
do it.
no bylaw or charter restrictions on it, then sure, I agree.
Yeah. I don't think there's a charter restriction on when we do it. We can check. It's easy to know.
Okay.
There's no charter restriction on the council.
Anything further from anybody else?
Good, thank you.
Just a comment. I'm just wanted to say, send our condolences to Catherine and Susan for the losses they've experienced in this last month or so. I'm very sorry to hear about their losses.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the cards, the letters, the good wishes. It's a tough time for everyone.
yeah. It's nice to have someone to go through it with, Susan.
I know. I know. Which wins?
I know.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one opposed? All right. Thanks very much, everyone, for participating. A couple of technical glitches, but I think overall went pretty good.
Very smooth.
Great work.
Nice to
Nice
see
job.
everyone.
All right. Nice to see everyone, too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
We'll
Take
see you
care.
soon.
Thank you.